The midday sun beat down on the bustling marketplace, a place where vendors shouted their prices. The scent of fresh bread and sizzling meat filled the air, and children dashed between crowded stalls, their laughter ringing through the square. It was a typical sunny afternoon in the heart of the city, a far cry from the chaos that was about to unfold. James Riker had come to the market for a simple task, to pick up some fresh fruit for his mother. But as he walked past the vegetable stalls, he felt something shift in the air. It was subtle at first, just a strange feeling of tension. He couldn't place it until the rumble hit his ears. A deep, mechanical growl, growing louder by the second. The ground seemed to vibrate as a dozen motorcycles roared into view. The bikers were led by a man whose face was a roadmap of violence. Scars crisscrossed his weathered skin. The crowd parted instinctively as the gang made their way through the market like predators, their leather jackets gleaming under the harsh sun. James slowed his pace, his military instincts kicking in. The bikers weren't here for anything good. The gang circled the square, engines revving, cutting through the market's usual hum. The vendors stiffened, their voices falling quiet as the bikers approached. Children stopped in their tracks, eyes wide, and mothers pulled their little ones close. Everyone knew the gang, or at least had heard stories of Razor, the gang leader, a man who ruled the streets with fear and violence. James kept his distance, staying near the fruit stand, his mind working. He could sense that this wasn't just about intimidation. Something was off. His eyes landed on Razor, who was already making his way to a nearby stall. A young woman was attempting to arrange baskets of tomatoes, her hands shaking as she nervously tried to keep her produce in place. Razor's boots clomped down on the cobblestones, each step deliberate and heavy. "Nice setup you've got here," Razor sneered, his voice cutting through the thickening silence. "But it's in my way." With a cruel swipe of his arm, Razor knocked over the woman's display, sending the ripe tomatoes tumbling to the ground, rolling in every direction. The woman dropped to her knees, tears welling in her eyes as she tried to salvage what she could. Her stall had just been ruined, her livelihood, and the market, once filled with life, had gone deadly quiet. James stepped forward, his boots crunching the cobblestones underfoot. His hand instinctively went to the small of his back, where he kept a concealed pistol, but he didn't need it. His training was enough. He walked toward the confrontation, his military presence undeniable. "That's enough." James' voice was low, calm, but firm. He wasn't asking for peace, he was demanding it. Razor turned to face him, his lips curling into a wicked grin as he assessed the new challenger. Well, what have we here? "Looks like we've got ourselves a hero," he taunted, his gang flanking him like wolves, sensing the tension. "I'm not a hero," James replied coolly, "but I don't take kindly to bullies." Razor's eyes flashed with malice, and in one swift movement, he lunged at James with a massive right hook. The punch was wild, filled with the raw energy of someone used to getting his way. But James, a soldier honed in hand to hand combat, moved like water. He sidestepped the attack effortlessly, then grabbed Razor's outstretched arm, twisting it behind his back in a move so precise, so practiced, that it left the gang leader gasping. In one smooth motion, James threw Razor to the ground, his face hitting the cobblestones with a sickening crack. The marketplace gasped in disbelief, but it didn't stop there. The bikers roared, rushing forward to defend their leader. But James was already a step ahead. A well-placed elbow sent one biker crashing into a nearby fruit stand, knocking over baskets of apples. Another biker lunged at him, but James dropped him with a sharp kick to the knee, sending him sprawling to the ground. It was like watching a force of nature, precise and unstoppable. The gang was quickly losing ground. Razor, blood dripping from his nose, scrambled to his feet, rage burning in his eyes. "You've made a big mistake, soldier," he snarled, his voice thick with anger. James stood tall, his gaze steady, unwavering. "No," he said. Coolly, "the mistake was thinking you could terrorize these people." The rest of the bikers hesitated, looking from their downed comrades to the soldier who had just dismantled their leader in a matter of seconds. They didn't know what to do, but they didn't need to. Razor, humiliated and furious, motioned for them to retreat. "We're leaving," he spat, as the gang leader stumbled toward his motorcycle. As the bikers sped off, engines roaring into the distance, the marketplace slowly began to return to life. People murmured in disbelief, staring at James with awe. The tension in the air dissolved, replaced by a quiet but growing sense of relief. The woman whose stall had been destroyed stood up shakily, wiping the tears from her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling. No one has ever stood up to them before. James gave her a soft smile, though he could feel the eyes of the entire marketplace on him. He helped her gather the remaining tomatoes, stacking the baskets carefully. "Sometimes it only takes one person to stand up," he said quietly, "to remind everyone else that they don't have to live in fear." As he turned to leave, his errand forgotten in the heat of the moment, James couldn't help but feel something had changed. The marketplace, once shackled by fear, now stood a little taller. People spoke with a little more confidence, moved with a little more purpose. Razor's shadow had been lifted, and in its place stood something stronger, hope. And sometimes, James reflected as he made his way home, the most important battles weren't fought on distant battlefields, but in places like this where ordinary people found the courage to stand up for what was right.